On the previous episode of our EK9 Type R build, we drove 600 kilometers just to get her home. And after thoroughly inspecting the car, though it is not perfect and it needs a lot of work, it is still a good base for a wonderful Type R journey. First thing I did was to remove the sound system and test fitted its original 1997 pre-facelifted look. Then I went on to strip the car of its interior in preparation for paint, because this baby deserves a championship white. Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of a Type R Journey EK9 Build 2021 series. And don't mind the sanding for now, because here's a little sneak peek of our future project cars for the next series. So make sure to hit subscribe, like, and share for future updates on our next episodes. Moving on to the EK9 build. As we all know, this car is painted very far from Y56 Phoenix kinda yellow, probably to mimic an iconic spoon build EK9, which obviously they did not do a good job, thus the sanding. But why though? Well, I have my own excuses, so you gotta hear me out. Moving around the car, I noticed that it's originally championship white out of factory, and it would have been the easiest way just to strip it down to its bare metal using paint removers, which is a thing these days. But during production, big car companies like Honda actually dips the chassis into a pool of galvanized goo before dipping it again in another one for its zinc-based primer, ensuring that your car is well protected from corrosion inside and out for many years to come. In my own opinion, or maybe you guys have also noticed, JDM Hondas are less susceptible to rust compared to the ones that are made in the Philippines. So in my case, I decided to have the car manually sanded down to its original paint coating simply because nothing beats genuine Honda rust protection. Plus, those extra factory coatings might help. Who knows? Come to think of it, factory paint jobs are actually pretty thin, but in multiple coatings, so that's what we're going to do to achieve a close factory finish, ensuring that the contours of the car are well showcased. Trust me, we're beyond early 2000s. Looking stock is just a thing now. Just to make sure, I checked the pillars again, just to see if it's really smooth as butter. Well, there you go, smooth as butter. And during the process, we found an area which has quite a lot of body fillers on it, which hides a small dent, so we had to sand it to bare metal, did some body work, and then applied a decent layer of anti-corrosive zinc-based primer, including some other areas as well. Back before, I always wondered, why do most car enthusiasts always knocks on the car during inspection? Now I understand why. I just couldn't resist the sound of this chassis singing that it's on a paint and body filler diet. Just like pizza, looking good on a thick dough, but tastes absolutely perfect on a thin crust, if you know what I mean. After removing that scab of a body filler, it's just so smooth, and the knock feels really good. Anyway, it just hit me. I am also into K swaps, and I do believe that K is the way. So I'm thinking about K swapping either this Verimit EK3 and just go full GNG, or, well, not that, or probably the CG6. It's very rare these days. Let me know in the comments, guys, what you think. And don't get me wrong, I will still be using this B16B for this particular build, since my plan is to restore it as close to stock as possible, depending on the genuine parts that I can find. As much as I hate body fillers, the hood actually came with some dents, probably from shipping, but I will make sure that it will be very minimal. It will be her dirty little secret, so hush hush. This is what happens when you do not paint your car right. Look at that, very thick, obviously with multiple coatings. Such a shame doing a car like this, especially a rare one. I mean, look at that. Heartbreaking, yeah? Now that she's prepped up and ready to go, next step is engine removal. Since she still runs, I managed to drive her to the back roads going to RevTech Garage, home of Hondas in this part of the region, ran by Jadong, an OG tuner from the 90s who came all the way from California. Very lucky to have him on this Type R journey. So upon arrival, he wasted no time and just went on to remove the engine right away. While inspecting its condition and identifying which parts that are needed to be replaced, to our surprise, aside from the blue Samco hoses, the engine accessories are mostly genuine. On point, it has the stock S4C transmission, which is, Type R 4.4 final drive with LSD. Just don't mind the blue Samco hoses, which are fake by the way. Let us focus on the genuine Honda starter. It still has the Japanese world stickers on it. The intake manifold is stock Type R, of course. The alternator is genuine Honda. Amazing. All is good so far, and well, it just needs some thorough cleaning. So off with the valve cover, it's time to check out its head. Wasn't really expecting it, but the insides are actually in great shape. After 20 years of VTEC kicking and with an odo reading of 50,000 kilometers. Well, maybe, just maybe it's true. It also came with some Toda goodies, adjustable cam gears, and well, the timing belt is also Toda, but too bad I had to replace it with a genuine OEM one. Better safe than sorry. Think of it as a fresh start. It also came with innovative engine mounts on the left and right, except the rear one. The ABS is still intact, but it's leaking some brake fluid, so it needs a new module. Brake lines are in place, but we need to have that firewall fixed so as to replace the front subframe, which will have to be sourced out from local left-hand drive Civics. The first step of a proper left-hand drive conversion is the firewall. You will need to source out a left-hand version. Find a good welder. Can save a lot if you do it yourself, but if you can't, well, then leave it to the experts. Post welding, it should be grinded down smoothly since welded portions are known to be very prone to rust. Also, this is one of the most sensitive areas since there is actually a major drainage system where water from the roof and the windshield passes through, so treat it with a zinc-based anti-corrosive primer with the aid of some non-sag epoxy for better protection. And most of all, do make sure that your welder gets the proper alignment, because if it's done right, everything else will fit right in smoothly. Oh, and do not forget to treat the interior as well, doing the same steps like grinding primers and epoxy, and then you're all good. Now that the most delicate part is done, well, time to move the car for under chassis paint. Now this is not your ordinary paint job. We will have to remove the suspension parts and then sand down the under chassis properly. It has to be properly cleaned so the paint would adhere. Come to think of it, it's, the most scratched up part, and you just can't see it. Then you get under chassis rust. Nobody likes under chassis rust. To do that, I am going to need a lifter, and since I don't have one, I took the car to one of my good friends' auto shop. It's not easy to move the car around, but with the help of some friends, the car made it to Deronia Engineering and Auto Services. They are good with repairs from old to modern cars, from engine to suspension and even bodywork. They can do it all. And they have a lifter, so there you go. This is actually the first time I lifted the car, so fingers crossed. I hope I did not buy a lemon. And to my surprise, it actually looks really good under there, if you know what I mean. Considering that it has been running in the Philippine streets for quite so many years now, that is really surprising. So, after some thorough cleaning and sanding, as usual, we protected it with some zinc-based primer. Those are the green ones. A good paint job is all about preparation, prep work. A good painter knows how to do this. It's like he spends more time on cleaning and preparing the car than the actual paint job itself. And if they do it right, it will look like this. Oh, you have to relax. This is just actually the gray primer. The first step of a good paint job. And the second step would be the base coat. Right there, that's the base coat. And during the process, lots are asking, how different is the Type R? Well, tip number one, you see these lines? Real EK9s have stronger rear lower subframes compared to the ones that are not Type Rs. It is more reinforced to support the thicker rear sway bar. Plus, it also has a built-in lower tie beam. Amazing, huh? There are a lot of difference between a regular EK hatch and an EK9. More than meets the eye. More on that in the coming episodes. Or maybe, just maybe, I will be making a how to spot a real Type R episode someday soon, so hit subscribe or follow my Instagram for more updates. But as for now, all I can say is the biggest part of the Type R formula is the chassis. Subtle but major alterations and upgrades that equates to a very rigid base paired with a high revving engine. That being said, compared to EK4 and EG6, they are the same beast but a whole lot of different animal. And that difference makes the Type R rare. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, there are only 16,241 EK9s ever produced and were exclusively released only in Japan. 7,007 of those are pre-facelifted variants that came out on mid-August 1997 to mid-1998 with a chassis prefix EK9 100. 4,009 of it were pre-facelifted, the EK9 110, and 5,225 facelift RX variants having a chassis prefix of EK9 120. This number includes the 200 units of Motorsport Edition or N1 variants, which are the rarest. Remember the yellow one that was sold for 11 million Japanese yen last June? Who would have thought? It's not a secret. Present enthusiasts are really shocked by the soaring prices of Type R parts these days. I can't blame them. Since EK9s are almost 25 years, they will be legally allowed to be imported to the United States. Imagine them waiting for 2.5 decades. So importers are hoarding, thus auction prices are through the roof. Not to mention the threat of the rising demand of electric cars. Sheesh, what a time to be alive. Here's a funny story about imported JDM cars in this country. It was completely frowned upon because back in the days, it's quite expensive to properly convert them to left-hand drive, let alone finding donor cars since most of it are still either expensive or still used. Worse, riced. Most EK9s that arrived here were mostly cut in half and just simply parted out. The high-revving B16B engines, red interiors, 5-lug discs were very high in demand, and restoring to stock was just not a thing. Since EK hatches were not locally released here, driving or owning one was just not that cool. It was labeled a surplus unit. Locally released EG hatches and sedan SIRs was just the bomb in those days. But times change, so has the demand. Restoration of real JDM cars are what tickles the interest of enthusiasts today. So now that the paint job is finally done, back to the conversion. To have a proper conversion, you have to change the front subframe. When I got her, she has the right-hand drive version. They actually cut a hole in there just to fit a new steering rack, and it's not even a Civic steering rack. So I got this from one of my part cars, and it's still fresh. It just needs some, TLC. So we changed the boots and, put some grease on it, cleaned it up, painted the subframe, and installed it with the proper locks. And there you go. Looking brand new. I can't really tell the difference between a Type R front subframe or the local Civic, but maybe, or I don't know, it doesn't really make a difference. And if there is, it's probably minimal. The most important thing is we get to have the correct steering. The final piece of the puzzle is this sort of brace on the bottom part of the subframe. It secures everything up and protects it from debris. So I just have it repainted and we're all done. After inspecting the paint job, I found out that there are portions that needs to be addressed. So I sealed it with some epoxy just to protect it for future rust. And then we'll have to repaint some of those little portions just to, cover it up. So that's to avoid future chipping of the paints. It's in the under chassis. It's very prone to chipping. Yes, I am that meticulous, and they are actually laughing and saying, "Why? Nobody would see it." But I just can't sleep at night thinking that there are possible chipping areas on the car. So that's not gonna work on me. It has to be covered up. After that, some minor touch-ups and we're done. I then went back to RevTech Garage where I left the engine for it to be thoroughly cleaned. It was very tempting to have it repainted like most restorers do, but I just can't have it. Sooner or later it will chip, and it's really not pleasing to the eye. Best leave it clean for now, since I read somewhere that Honda engines are actually made of aluminum for lightweight. Brackets are a different story, but it can be treated post-restoration, and I'm just too excited to have it done. Plus, more content in the future. The engine will undergo a heavy periodic maintenance. That includes replacing the timing belt, seals, oil change, probably a brand new valve cover depending on the budget. Definitely the radiator hoses. Back to the auto shop, they started installing the under chassis parts. Front subframe looks brand new, but the control arms will be painted later. I would have loved to replace the bushings, but I'm running out of time, and the parts are still in transit. This baby deserves the best, so I am ordering genuine Honda parts. Well, mostly. Since I was too meticulous, the process have been delayed, and now I am late on schedule, so I decided to have the necessary parts installed for it to be able to roll to the other destination where we will be repainting the rest of the car. I am confident that I can work on the suspension parts myself, but the engine and wiring is a different story. I'll leave that to Jaydong and his skills. So that I can focus more on the bigger picture, I have to hunt for the rest of the genuine parts, and that includes the steering wheel, the genuine emblems and stickers, replacement seals, OEM water pump, and other tiny bits that are still OEM, of course. The list goes on, and that needs a lot of focus and a deep wallet, which is the main focus. I mean, not crying while actually paying for those parts. The calipers needs to be refreshed and powder coated. These bushings needs replacing, and red trailing arms are just too rise out to flaunt, so it needs to be repainted back to sateen black. It's already prepped for paintwork, but I have to replace those bolts and paint the brackets, clean the cables, and this really needs to be black. The lower control arms needs to be changed back to its OEM, and I have that already. Gas tank needs to be replaced since it's very rusty inside, and we don't want rust inside that very rare B16B engine. It is going to be very messy if we leave that as it is. Oh, I forgot to mention about the coilovers. It's an original Teen Driving Master coilover. It came with the car and it's an old version, so it's very repairable. I will be shipping them to coilover specialists for them to refresh it and maybe do some modifications on it. I know they can. Sir Don of Coilover Specialist is highly recommended by my friends, and these friends are very particular on building cars, so I trust him. What am I doing? Well, actually, I'm pointing everything out to see if all the bolts are in place. Sorry, this is how Japanese factory workers do some final checking to see if everything is right where it should be. I mean, don't trust your brain. Your brain messes you up sometimes. Ever work on a car and ended up having an extra bolt? That is very confusing and alarming, of course. There is also a risk having other people work on your car, but I am not an expert. I mean, I am an enthusiast, but I am not an expert, so I leave it to them. But it is such a pleasure checking their work. I mean, they are just so good. Being so patient and understanding, having a client as meticulous as I am. I mean, well, it's a rare car. It's an EK9. It should be done right. It should be done to my specifications. You know, I don't really care if I have to do it again. I mean, they have to do it again. I just want it done the right way. I mean, it's a rare car and it's my dream car. It's a Type R, rather. And sourcing out these parts, you know, is very hard considering its prices. I mean, let alone, you know, even EK hatches these days are very, very expensive. I can only imagine the cost of buying a mint condition EK hatch these days. I know for sure because it took me 3 EK9s just to finally get a mint, uncut, and registered one. I mean, call me lucky, but the cost of that luck is very painful to mention. But just like what Ben Thorne from Gears and Gasoline said, it's not practical, it's a hobby, and hobbies are expensive. Some spend it on cockfighting, golf, gambling, and other sorts of fun, so it boils down to your choices, and I choose cars. Because ever since in college, cars has just always been my thing. I mean, cars, driving, Initial D's, Fast and the Furious, you know the drill. And I don't know if I have ever mentioned, this particular car, the 1997 Civic Type R EK9, has been my dream ever since. And dreams are not easy to reach. I mean, restoring a car is not an easy job. Patience is the key. Mixed with that, with excitement and finally having the car that you've been drooling on for so many years, it proves to be very difficult being patient. This project is my stress reliever and I am a working man. I have a job and I run a business. I have a very fat dog to feed and another one that needs all the attention that he can get. I also have a family and going to be married soon. Adding that all up, we sometimes need to blow off some steam to release the pressure, and it is a fiance approved hobby, so I'm juggling everything up to make everything work. That having said, it means I don't have a fixed schedule for this particular build, rather an open one where everything will be convenient for me. By the way, oh my god, the steering is just so perfect. Now she is officially left-hand drive steering wise and I can't just wait to test it out on the road. The dashboard frame is also done right. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't fit exactly as it is. That just means our welder has done a good job. Perfect. Perfectly splendid. Oh, and you might be wondering why I move the car a lot. I just recently got back to building cars and I do not have the special tools, the lifter, and also, like a factory, there will be different people for every part of the build. So it's time to pack it all up, prepare everything, because tonight we will be moving it to Temple Garage for the actual paint job of the whole chassis. It's going to be a long process, so that will give me enough time to prepare for the other parts that are needed and to give Jaydong some leeway and also provide him with the parts that he needs for the engine installation and other stuff. I mean, he will be in charge of, the power steering, the wiring, the engine, and mostly everything that is on the front part of the car. Plus, I will be staying on the island for a job, so I will be probably gone for quite a while, but the paint job will still be continuing while Jaydong is also refreshing the engine. But don't worry guys, all of those will be shown on the episode 3 of this series. So please don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. And also follow my Instagram at EmperorBuild for more updates. And I am happy to announce that another series will be coming up right after this one ends. This will be maybe 5 episodes, and after that we will be proceeding on the EK3 K20 build. I hope you guys will be there to see it. So there will be more episodes and series coming up. So stay safe guys, and thank you for watching. Oh wait, before I go, one of those who inspired me to build again are the Benz of Gears and Gasoline. They are just so amazing. But unfortunately, Small Ben has been suffering from COVID at the moment. So please check their Instagram on how to express your help, assistance, and send out prayers for his fast recovery. So I have to say it again. Please, stay safe guys. Ciao!